All right, let's jump right in. We've all been there, right? You're holding a plank, your body is shaking, you can feel that burn. But have you ever stopped to think about what's actually happening inside that muscle tissue? It's not just sweat and effort, it's this incredibly complex dance of physics and biology. And that's exactly what we're going to break down today. I mean, seriously, what's going on at the microscopic level when you're pushing through that last rep? It's this amazing story of tension and force and length. And to really get it, we need to understand the fundamental ways our muscles actually get the job done. So, to get our heads around this, we've got to start with the basics. It turns out, pretty much all muscle contractions can be sorted into two main buckets. And luckily for us, their names, which are straight from Greek, give us some major clues about what they do. First up, we've got isotonic. Just break it down. Iso means same, and tonos means tension, so same tension. In an isotonic contraction, your muscle is working against a steady load or tension, but its actual length is changing. This is what you're doing in most classic gym exercises. But see, isotonic isn't just one thing. It's got two very distinct parts. On one hand, you have the concentric contraction. That's the lifting part, the hard work where the muscle shortens, like when you curl a dumbbell up towards your shoulder. Then you have the eccentric contraction. This is the lowering part, where you're controlling the weight on the way down. The muscle is actually lengthening, but it's still under tension, fighting gravity. You need both to really build strength. And this is where it gets kind of wild, because that eccentric phase has a secret superpower. I mean, think about it. It's true, right? You can always control and lower a heavier weight than you could ever hope to lift. In fact, research shows we're about 120 to 170% stronger eccentrically. Your muscle is acting like a powerful brake, and it's an incredibly strong position for it to be in. All right, that was type 1. Now for the second big category, isometric contraction. Again, iso means same, but this time it's paired with metronon, which means measure or length. So same length. You guessed it. In this case, your muscle is firing up and creating a ton of tension, but its length isn't changing one bit. You know this feeling. The perfect example is a plank or a wall sit. When you're in a plank, your core is on fire. Your muscles are working like crazy to hold you steady, but you're not actually moving. Same with a wall sit. Your quads are screaming at you, generating all this force, but your joints are locked in place. That is pure isometric effort. Okay, so isotonic, isometric. Sounds simple enough, right? And for planning a workout, these definitions are great. But for scientists, for doctors trying to figure out muscle diseases or coaches trying to unlock peak athletic performance, this simple picture just doesn't cut it. It misses the messy, beautiful, three-dimensional reality of what a muscle really is. You see, the first scientific models, these things called hill-type models, had some huge blind spots. They basically treated an entire, complex muscle like it was just a simple line, a 1D spring that just pulls from point A to point B. And as you can see here, that spring just can't explain the muscle's own weight, the way it bulges and changes shape, or its intricate internal wiring. And maybe most importantly, you can squish a spring, right? But muscle is mostly water. It's nearly incompressible, kind of like a water balloon. So if the old way is broken, what do? Well, you have to throw out that simple 1D spring and start over. You have to build a new model from the ground up, one that captures all of the muscle's amazing complexity in glorious 3D. And this right here is a perfect reason why that 3D view is so crucial. Your muscle fibers aren't just a bundle of straight lines running parallel. A lot of the time they're angled, sort of like the structure of a feather. This pennant structure is super clever. It lets you pack more muscle fibers into a smaller space, which totally changes how force is produced. And you just can't understand that if you aren't modeling the muscle as the complex 3D material it truly is. So how in the world do you actually build a digital muscle? Well, it's kind of like a four-step process. First, you have to describe the tissue as this complex 3D fiber-reinforced material. Second, you apply the laws of physics that govern how things stretch and squash. But the real magic is step 3. You use a powerful technique to chop the digital muscle up into thousands of tiny little blocks, and then you simulate how they all interact. And finally, you plug in real-world data from experiments to make sure your digital muscle behaves just like the real thing. So we've gone to all this trouble to build this incredibly sophisticated model. What can it actually tell us that the old ones couldn't? Well, for starters, it can finally help us answer a question that sounds almost too basic. Does the muscle's own weight, its own mass, actually matter? And just look at this. The difference is night and day. On the left is the old way, without mass. See how it's all smooth? The whole thing just kind of contracts instantly. But now look at the model on the right, the one that includes mass. Do you see those ripples? That's an actual elastic wave traveling through the tissue. It's a completely different physical event that's happening inside. So what's the big takeaway here? It's huge. During fast dynamic movements, a muscle's own mass creates its own internal forces. Its inertia matters, and this causes a wave to ripple through the tissue. This is a fundamental part of how muscles work, and it was completely invisible to science until these advanced 3D models came along. Now, this is so much more than just some cool physics simulation on a computer. This new level of understanding has profound real-world applications. This is where the science can leap off the screen and be applied directly to helping actual patients. And you can see just how powerful this is. These simulations let scientists see inside a contracting muscle with a level of detail you could never, ever get from an experiment on a living person. They can see exactly how it deforms, how it bulges, and where the stress is concentrated. It's like having microscopic vision. Let's make this real with a specific case, cerebral palsy. This condition causes significant changes to muscle tissue. As you can see, the model can simulate these very specific changes, things like the connective tissue getting stiffer, or changes to the length of sarcomeres, which are like the tiny little engines inside every muscle fiber. And this right here is the real game changer. See, in a real patient, all these changes are happening at once, and it's impossible to untangle them. But in the simulation, a researcher can change just one thing at a time. They can ask, what happens if we only make the tissue stiffer? This lets them pinpoint which factors are doing the most damage, and that is an absolutely critical step towards developing therapies that can target the actual root of the problem. So you can see where this is all going. We're getting closer and closer to creating a true digital twin of the human body. We started with something as simple as a plank, and we've ended up with a complex simulation that could revolutionize medicine. It just goes to show you that digging into the fundamentals can lead to the most incredible breakthroughs. And it leaves you wondering, what other secrets of our own bodies are we about to unlock next?